Okay, so the higher tier extended questions then. I'm not going to go through this blow by blow because you've got the mark scheme for these and you don't need me to tell you the things you need to say. But it's important to realize that there is some flexibility around the marking of these questions. When I mark these at GCSE, I'm looking to see, is there enough detail to allow me to do this experiment in a fair, reliable, reproducible way? And can I give this student 6 marks? So the first thing that the examiner will do is to look to see whether it is a level 1, level 2 or level 3 answer. Of course we have level 0 as well, but we're not interested in level 0. So that's the first thing. And if you look at the mark scheme, you can see the sort of hierarchy here. Level 3, coherent method, relevant detail, broad understanding, relevant scientific techniques and procedures, logical, valid results. So all the detail that is needed for the experiment to be carried out successfully needs to be laid out logically and sensibly to get level 3. Level 2 is basically good, but the examiner isn't being given that confidence that you really know what you're talking about. Maybe it's not completely logical, maybe there's a little bit of detail missing, but basically it works. Level 1, you've said something, but the method doesn't work. It's not logical, something like that. But really, to get anything more than 2 marks, the method has to basically work. So the sorts of things you can see there on your mark scheme, you should control the amount of caffeine. You should have a decaffeinated coffee, or looking further down the list there, you should have a non-caffeinated solution in place of coffee as a control. There is no control mentioned in this experiment. Not only should you be controlling the concentration of the coffee, but also the volume of coffee being consumed, because it's the amount of caffeine that you're interested in. Your students should not know which strength of caffeine drink they're having, because that may affect the way they behave. So you can see all those points and why it makes sense. Starting with the lowest concentration of caffeine makes sense, because if you start with the highest concentration, that may still be in the bloodstream when you come down to lower concentrations. And using the same person, because caffeine affects different people differently, maybe. Certainly that's an important control mechanism. So that's the rationale behind answering these questions. That generally speaking, your answer, if you're going to get 5 or 6 marks for it, your answer needs to be logical, it needs to be coherent, and it needs to include enough detail so that the experiment can be done correctly to get valid results. If we look then at our next question about crude oil, describe and explain how describe and explain how crude oil is separated into different fractions. So again, you'll see from the mark scheme we have relevant points logically put together. So if you think about the diagram, what happens is the crude oil is heated, the various compounds in it vaporize, they enter the fractionating column. As you go up the column, the temperature falls. The different compounds within the crude oil vaporize, or rather condense at different temperatures. And there is that relationship between the length of the chain and the boiling point of that substance. So the longer chain molecules are lower down, the shorter chain molecules are higher up where it is cooler. So that's the basic rationale behind that. And finally then, in terms of the braking distance question. The sorts of things you need to say are that the wet road reduces the friction between the tyres and the road and therefore increases the braking distance. If he brakes too hard, the wheels may lock up and he slides, and therefore his braking distance is increased. If he is tired or distracted or under the influence of alcohol or drugs which would increase his reaction time, then his thinking distance would be longer, and that would make his overall stopping distance longer, because the stopping distance is the thinking distance plus the braking distance. So those are the sorts of things that I would look for in that answer.